Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. Thanks for tuning in. Ham Talk Live will be on the air shortly. Please stand by. This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For connectors, cables, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by ICOM. Heard it? Worked it? Logged it. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information about ICOM radios.
It's Ham Radio with Neil Rapp. Here we go. Welcome to Ham Talk Live. Call in, let's talk. Neil's your guy. Ham Talk Live. Here we go on Ham Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. It's Ham Talk Live, episode number 133, the Baker Island DXpedition wrap-up, recorded live on Thursday, September 20th, 2018. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight, we're joined by Don Greenbaum, N1DG, and we'll take your calls live in a few minutes. Last week here on the show, Lee Height, KH7Z was here from the National Voice of America Museum of Broadcasting, talking about the new U.S. Coast Guard Courier exhibit at the Voice of America Museum. So if you missed out on that, just go on over to hamtalklive.com or your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeart Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, or SoundCloud, or even go over to YouTube and you can check that out. So get your questions ready to go. We'll talk a little DXing tonight. After a little interview, you can give us a call. The phone number is 812-NET-HAM1. That's 812-638-4261, so you can have that number ready. It's not time to call yet, but it will be soon. So, again, that number is 812-638-4261. Or you can Skype us if you're into the Skype thing. You can give us a call on there. We're Ham Talk Live on Skype. Or you can tweet us if you'd rather type instead of talk. Our Twitter handle is @HamTalkLive. So I'll be back with Don right after this word from Tower Electronics right here on Ham Talk Live.
Hey, honey, have you seen the PL259s anywhere?
No, I haven't. Come on, kids. Let's go.
There's just one place to go for all of your connector needs.
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
A giant warehouse of connectors and adapters for every occasion. Thousands to choose from in every shape, size, and color. And they have antennas, soldering supplies, cables, meters, and more. Where do you go if you want to buy a connector at a fraction of retail cost?
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
And this weekend only, take advantage of our special liquidation sale. Buy 9 solder-type PL259s, get the 10th one for just 1 penny. They make great Christmas presents. And what better way to say I love you than with the gift of a PL259?
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
Tower Electronics.
Hi, I'm Scott Cole, KB9AMM, president of Tower Electronics. I like the company so much that I bought it.
Tower Electronics, coming to a Hamfest near you or online at pl-259.com. And we're in the yellow pages under Amateur Radio Connectors.
My, wherever did you get that lovely PL259?
Tower Electronics, pl-259.com or call 920-435-2973.
Do we sell PL259 connectors?
Right now, you could be sitting on a beach, sipping a drink with an umbrella in it, and enjoying the good life. But instead, you've decided to listen to Ham Talk Live. So we thank you. And now here's Neil Rapp with more of the show.
Thanks, as always, to Scott and Jill at Tower Electronics for sponsoring the show again tonight. They help bring you Ham Talk Live each and every week, all the way from the beginning. And coming up, they'll be in Belton, Texas on October 5th and 6th. And then they'll be in Greenville, Tennessee, October 20th. Excuse me, or you can visit pl-259.com anytime and pick up your PL259. So don't forget about that. Well, Don Greenbaum is back with us tonight in 1DG. He was licensed in 1962 and has operated from several remote locations and has been the pilot, webmaster, and QSL manager for several DXpeditions. He's a member of ARRL, DDXA, and YCCC, and he's the treasurer of NCDXF and one of the founders of CW Ops. And Don resides in Duxbury, Massachusetts, and is a 2006 inductee into the CQDX Hall of Fame. And he's back and a whole lot cooler than he was the last time I talked to him. So, Don, welcome back.
Thanks, Neil. It's always fun being here.
Well, you're back home now, and like I said, much cooler because it was a hot one. The logs are done. You were on the show by sat phone here from the island live, and you were just getting started on all the operations on the island. And congratulations to you and the team on enduring the heat and enduring everything. And I saw my confirmation on Logbook of the World pretty soon after it was over, and I just got some QSL cards for here and for school here not long ago. So tell us how all those QSL requests are going from the trip.
Okay, well, first, I noticed this morning that it's 50 degrees cooler here this morning than it was when we talked on Baker. So we've had about 4,000 people request cards on OQRS and via direct. The cards came out. We got them from the printer about 2 weeks ago. They're being processed about 100 a day. There's about 1,700 cards that have gone out in the mail, so we're about halfway through the backlog. LOTW, for everybody who donated, we uploaded those the day I got home from Fiji. And to date, we've uploaded 29,000 QSOs, because everybody that orders an OQRS QSL, I also upload those QSOs. So we have about 29,000 of our 69,000, or roughly 40%, have gone up to LOTW. That's why you saw yours. And congratulations on your new one.
Yeah, it was. It was an all-time new one, and boy, I didn't think I was going to get it, because every time I listened, I could hear absolutely nothing, and decided to give this FT8 thing a try. And the first night it didn't work, but the second night it finally did. So we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But sounds like you're making some headway on the QSL front, and there's some good looking cards, and I'm sure people will be anxiously awaiting those.
Yeah, people like those four-sided cards.
Yeah, they are really, really nice. So I was glad to see those in the mailbox the other day. Well, tell us a little bit about the journey over there. Fortunately, it was rather uneventful, but you had a cool pass by that I know you want to talk about, and some of the adventures of getting there and back. So tell us a little bit about the trip.
Okay, well, because we were going into a nature reserve. Fish and Wildlife said we had to have our boat inspected at a U.S. port. The nearest one, nearest being 1,100 nautical miles, was American Samoa. And if you draw a map between American Samoa and Baker Island, you pass several other DXCC countries, but more importantly, you pass right by something called Nikomororo Island, which is part of Kiribati. And that is where most people now believe Amelia Earhart landed. And when we were planning our trip, the boat's called the Naya, and Rob Barrow, the captain, has been searching with a group called Tigger for Amelia Earhart for close to 20 years, and they've been to all these islands. And that's what made our voyage so uneventful, because they've been in this area many times. It's a ship that's been out at sea for, I think, 15 years now, so quite experienced, quite capable. And so a couple of days out on this 6-day voyage, we were literally within hundreds of feet of Nikomororo. And the captain was hoping we could stop and dive. But when he asked Kiribati for permission, because we were entering their waters, of course, they said, yeah, that's great. Come by and pick us up because we want to be there if you find anything. And, of course, that would have delayed us from reaching Baker by days and days. So, but they pointed out to us where they think the airplane lies off the beach. And that was really neat. We got to Baker, as you said, without any issues. 10 days at Baker. 69,000 QSLs, extreme heat. We hightailed it out of there because of an approaching storm, which made the seas a little rough going back to Fiji. And the return to Fiji was another 1,300 nautical miles. So the Naya tooled around with us 2,400 nautical miles. Nobody got injured getting on and off over the reef. We didn't lose any gear. None of the radios failed. The thing I'll always remember about the voyage were the sunsets, the amazing colors in the sky. Every evening, and we had fairly clear sailing, so we had a beautiful sunset every night. Fijians are very musical, so every night somebody was playing the banjo or guitar and singing. It was quite a nice trip, and we made lots of cues, which is always fun on a DXpedition.
Well, that's what you want to hear. You don't want the drama, and it sounds like this one was pretty drama-free, and I'm sure you're very, very happy about that. So let's talk about those cues. Early on, I know, just kind of watching the social media and watching some of the posts and things, there was some disappointment with band conditions, and seemed like you guys were on FT8 a whole lot more than we were expecting, and you were able to compensate for some of those band conditions with that. So tell us how FT8 changed this expedition and maybe future DXpeditions, and why you ended up using it so much.
Okay, well, we had 8 stations. FT8 was used on 2 of them. So it was a quarter, digital was a quarter of our available radios. And interestingly enough, FT8 was 24% of our cues. But the bottom line is CW was 40% of our QSLs. Sideband was about 27. So FT8 didn't detract, it added. I'm a firm believer that if we did not use FT8, we would have made about 10 to 12,000 less QSLs. we hadn't planned it to be that way. We were planning a lot more RTTY, but FT8's a digital mode. And FT8 excels for weak signals, and we went at the bottom of the cycle. It took us 3 years to get licensed, permitted to go. By the time we got the permit with the window they gave us, it was go at the bottom of the cycle. We made 1,700 Qs on top band. 90% of those were CW. So FT8 was the third most successful mode, but 900 people, and you're one of them, made one Q on one band with the Baker Island DXpedition. And that one Q was FT8. And when we got back, there was email after email saying exactly what you just said, Neil. They didn't expect a QSL. A third of those uniques were in Europe with stations of modest facilities. So FT8 proved the distance, the difference in you making a queue or not for 900 people. And we had 18,000 uniques because we stayed only on 20 meters with 2 of our 8 radios. There was some points during the day when we had 3 stations on 20 meters, CW, digital or FT8, or CW or sideband. So we were taking advantage of our best band and putting the weak ones in the log with FT8. Where's this going? We discovered after a day or so that one operator could be in the digital tent, which became known as the Digital Palace, and using the Foxhound mode, could operate 2 radios just by going backwards and forwards and filling the queue and choosing stations to work. And we had some rates of 300 an hour. We started FT8 2 days into the expedition, so we might have been able to do more. You asked where this is going. So imagine this. You could put 3 radios on a multiplexer and operate 3 different bands. One operator could theoretically operate 3 radios with 1 antenna. Imagine the footprint you save. Imagine the resources you save, and the efficiency of maybe 400 Qs an hour with one operator. I think somebody's going to do that. And I see FT8 making a lot more 6-meter Qs possible in the future, and making a lot more, bringing a lot more DXers into the hobby, because you've heard this. Lots of people say, oh, I can't work DX, especially a top 10. Now all of a sudden, here's a shot.
Yep. Yeah. And I was planning on running into to school and use the stepper and everything, and the amplifier, and that just didn't time into my schedule, and so I was stuck at home on an offsetter fed dipole that's kind of, strangely arranged because of I live on a hill, and so it's kind of sloped into the hill a little bit, and running 150 watts, and
you worked the number 5 most wanted DXN.
Yeah, worked it. Was able to get it on FT8, and I kept going over to phone, which is kind of my preferred way, and heard nothing. I went over to CW and was shaking, because there was a time when I did 20 words a minute, but that was several decades ago. And I thought, okay, I'll do CW if I have to. couldn't hear it, could not pull it out at all. And so when I went to FT8 and all of a sudden I saw it come up, I was amazed, and it took a while, but it worked. And I think if, like you said, if you think you can triplex that and get 3 bands on one antenna, the resources that you could save and those kinds of rates, I think I'm like you, somebody's going to try that.
We're planning it.
Yeah, I would too. So that may be how a lot of people were able to get the first timers, get the all-time new one. But I'm interested to hear that it was only 25%, but it also may be that was all that we could hear back here in the States too. So that may have
no, I think
that a little
think
bit.
it was our concentration of 6 radios on other modes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about finances here for a minute. This is no small feat, and you've done a great job with financing, and you are the man when it comes to financing DXpeditions. And in fact, there's an article in this month's QST about financing DXpeditions, and by the way, Don probably won't say it, but you can go in there and vote for the Cover Plaque Award, and Don's one of the choices here, so you might want to go vote for Don. But how did you do with raising money before the trip? Where did it come from? And then how did that go during the trip and after?
The way to raise money for a DXpedition is from clubs and foundations. The team put up half the money. The budget for this operation was almost $470,000. The boat was expensive. The shipping was expensive. We had to buy the tents. There were a lot of things to put together over the year to make this possible. So half the money came from the team before we left. Another 35% of the pre-departure expenses came from clubs and foundations. NCDXF was our biggest financier at $75,000. The bulk of the money, excluding the team, because that would really skew the numbers, came from North America. 77% of our funding came from North America, which made less than half of the Qs, by the way. Where did it come from? The team, 49%, foundations and clubs, 24%, and individuals, mostly after we got back. People like to make sure they're in the log before they pay. And so OQRS brought in about a quarter of the budget after the fact. And we still had expenses after we got home, of course. How do you raise money? We did bi-weekly press releases. We did daily releases while we were on the island. Keep people informed, give them something to look forward to. Post pictures, and keep begging for money. We're still not fully paid for this trip, but I believe with OQRS and when people start hearing that the cards are beginning to go out, we'll get there.
Very good, and even sneak in a phone call with Ham Talk Live while you're there, so we appreciate that tremendously. It was good to hear from you over there, and that was a highlight here. So we appreciate that. All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll give you a chance to call in and ask some questions with Don, and we'll talk a little more about the Baker Island DXpedition right after this word from ICOM America, right here on Ham Talk Live.
Heard it, worked it, logged it. It's time to get the transceiver that is best suited for your lifestyle. ICOM offers a variety of high-performance and innovative products. See how you can make the most out of contest season with one of these transceivers. First, the ICOM IC7851, the competitive edge you've been looking for. Raise the bar and hear what others cannot with this flagship HF and 50 megahertz transceiver. It has reciprocal mixing dynamic range, crystal clear LO design, a spectrum scope, dual receivers, and digital voice recorder. The ICOM IC7610 is the SDR every ham wants, and just in time for contesting season. This high-performance SDR has the ability to pick out the faintest of signals, even in the presence of stronger adjacent ones. The new ICOM IC7610 is a direct sampling, software-defined radio that will change the world's definition of an SDR transceiver. Featuring RF direct sampling system, 110 dB RMDR, independent dual receiver, and dual Digicel. And then the ICOM IC7300 is changing the way entry-level HF is designed. This high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design will far exceed your expectations. With RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and an SD memory card slot. Be sure to visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM radios.
Join the conversation. Call us on voice with Skype at Ham Talk Live or give us a call at 812-NET-HAM1. That's 812-638-4261. Now, here's more Ham Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. You're talking ham radio, baby. You're listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
Thanks again to ICOM America for supporting Ham Talk Live. We're on the air every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here at hamtalklive.com, and be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now it's time for your calls. If you have a question for Don, give us a call. Phone number again, 812-NET-HAM1, 812-638-4261, or you can Skype us or tweet us if you like it. Ham Talk Live on both of those, and you can find us there. And we've got a note here from Jill Combs, listening in Gaylord, Michigan tonight, so thanks for tuning in on the road there. And Don, you had a chance to check out some wildlife while you were there. I have to tell this story. I was in Florida this summer and saw a guy walking his pet, and we looked down, and it was a tortoise. This guy was just walking down the sidewalk of Cocoa Beach, walking his tortoise. So you never know where you're going to see this wildlife. So what all did you run into while you were away?
The island has, being a bird sanctuary, has anywhere between 7 and 11 million birds. We're talking about an island 1.5 miles by a mile. It's loud, it's noisy. When the wind stops, there's an incredible smell from the guano, and it was mined as a guano island in the 1800s, 1857 to be exact. Before we even left the boat the first morning, there were tortoises swimming around. Each day as we went over the reef, There were skates and rays swimming around the boat. There were hundreds of thousands hermit crabs that would crawl around, come into the tent, and bother us at night. During the day, they went in the lighthouse and totally filled it up to get out of the sun. There are no trees on Baker Island. Only some scrub brush. And so we saw hermit crabs, 8 or 10 different types of birds, including red-tailed tropic birds, sooty terns. There were more sooty terns than anything else. Frigate birds, which live in trees, but on Baker Island, where there aren't any, they live on these little, any hill they can find, even if it's only a foot high. And masked boobies and brown boobies and that sort of thing. But the water was teeming with porpoises, and when we left, they call it the pod of Baker Island bottlenose dolphins. They just led the way. You know how you see dolphins in front of the boat? They just kept coming up and breaching and diving back in. So lots of wildlife, but there's also a lot of history on Baker Island. In the mid-1800s, it was a guano camp. It was discovered by whalers. The captain of the ship was named Baker. The boat was the Howland, so now you know where Baker and Howland came from. And there are still the ruins of the settlement. In the 1930s, the Hawaiians tried to colonize it. That didn't go well. In fact, they finally gave up after the Japanese bombed it on the way back from Pearl Harbor. During the war, they built a landing strip there, and the military was there, and you can see a lot of rotting vehicles and landing craft. There are graves there of the couple of Hawaiians who died and military people, and you can still see where the defensive battlements were built into the coral. That, in a nutshell, plus 120 degrees is Baker Island.
812-638-4261 is the phone number. If you'd like to call in and ask a question, please do so now. We'd love to hear from you tonight. Now, you mentioned the lighthouse, and we'd talked a little bit about, or are you going to try to use that in any way? Were you able to use that in any way?
No, that was built 80 or so years ago. It was way too small, and it was occupied. There were also
with a few thousand of your friends.
Right. There was a Loran site there in the 1950s, and there are 420-odd tall poles, but that was off limits too because A, who wants to climb a 70-year-old wooden pole, and B, it's a historical site. So we put up antennas on the beach.
Sounds like a good plan there. 812-638-4261 is the phone number to call if you have a question about the Baker Island DXpedition. So you mentioned that there were all these wildlife sanctuaries and for the birds. Did at any time did you think about renaming it to Hitchcock Island? Or
there's a video.
Was that on purpose?
Oh. Neil,
yes, there's a video.
There's a video on our website of these birds, and when I show it at Hamventions and whatever, it's right out of the movie. I mean, you can't see the sky. That's how many birds were flying around there at times. every morning they went out for their food, and every afternoon they came back. And I don't think we have one picture, including in the tents, where there isn't some animal, whether it be a hermit crab at your feet or a bird flying by.
Well, sounds like an interesting place. 812-638-4261. If you have a question for Don, N1DG with the Baker Island DXpedition. So I probably know the answer to this before I even ask it, but I'll go ahead and ask it. So, what's next?
Funny thing, we keep going to these top 10 countries, and they're still 10 in the top 10. So
yep.
there's a bunch of rare ones out there, and a bunch of those are still in the Pacific. We're looking at a couple, but it takes about a year to unwind from one of these. Then it might take a year or two to get permission to go to one of the other ones, or fundraise, or even figure out which one you want to go to. I don't know where we're going next.
Okay. Well, we've got a caller on the line, so let's see what question we have here for Don, N1DG. Good evening. Hello, you're on the air. Hello? Okay, I guess they're not on the air. 812-638-4261 is the phone number to call if you'd like to ask a question about this. And yeah, it's funny how they're these top 10 lists, they don't get any shorter. So I'm sure you've got something in the works, but we'll wait to hear about that. So I'll ask you the next question that you may or may not want to answer. Cold or hot?
Oh, having been down to the Southern Oceans and the bad weather and the bad seas, there's something nice about the calm Pacific. That this group's been to Midway and Wake, Fiji and Pongo, and of course Baker now. I think I'm sticking to the mid-latitudes for a while.
All right. I think we've got a call on the line now, so let's see if we do. Who's this? Hello? And once again, we don't have a call. So, all right. Don't know what's going on with that. But we'll hang around here for a few minutes. If you want to chime in, it's 812-638-4261. So, tell us a little bit about how you went about setting up all this equipment. You mentioned, you had some poles there, but you really couldn't use those, and you just set everything up on the beach. How do you get your antennas to go up on the beachfront?
A lot of what we did was driven by our special use permit. They said we couldn't go inland. We had to be on the beach, which actually, given that they also said we were limited to verticals, and 43-foot verticals at that, the only way to make a vertical play is in the salt water. So we got right down to the water line, just above the high tide mark. We had 5 antennas at the CW tent, which is 3/4 of a mile from the digital tent, and the sideband tent was right in the middle. So we had stepper verticals. We had homebrew verticals that were 2 elements. We put the 160 antenna all the way at the north of the island. You throw an anchor in the ground, and since it was only 43 feet, it's not that hard to walk up and guy it. All the guy wires had to have flags on them, so we wouldn't harm any wildlife, which we did not. We set up separate antennas down at each of the other 2 operating tents. We had a 900 megahertz link back to the boat. We were playing with the idea of some of the operators, because we had more operators than could stay on the island overnight. So we were going to try to see about remote operation from the boat. There was a lot of multipath distortion as the boat would rock, so remote never happened. But we had 3 antennas at the digital tent. We had 5 at the sideband, and we had actually 7, including the receive antennas up at the CW tent. So we got to the island. We set up the first thing, shelter, brought water on, food, generators. That was the first day, and in 120 degrees, that's enough. We all went back to the boat, recovered from the harsh environment. Day 2, we got up all the CW antennas and a couple of the sideband antennas. They say it never rains on Baker, but that night a squall came through and knocked down a couple of those antennas. But after 2 full days, we were on the air. The 3rd day, everything else went up, and we had 8 stations. It took us over 2 days to put everything up. But when we got word a storm was coming, it took about 12 hours to take everything down and bug out.
Okay, very good. And then rigs, what did you end up with there, and any changes that you think you might make for that unknown next time?
We had 8 generators. We had 8 radios, 8 linears. The radios were all lent to us by Elecraft. They were the K3S. We had KPA 500s. We had 1 homebrew linear for 160 that AA7JV built. That was 2 kilowatts. But everything else was 500 watts. They worked fine. It was the conditions that limited us, not the power. We had weatherport tents. As I mentioned, these were sturdy, and we had 4 of them. We had 4 sleeping tents in addition to that. From REI, they were these big Agnes tents, they call them. Plus, we had this skiff going back and forth bringing us food. Twice a day they brought us food. Breakfast we made ourselves, mostly cereal or scrambled eggs. And the usual paraphernalia you need, like, desks, chairs, lights, fire extinguishers, protective burns under the generators. 5,800 pounds of gear.
Wow. And it all has to go out there on the island, and it all has to come back, and it did. And so now we can look forward to hearing what the future may bring. So congratulations on a successful event, and remind everyone where they can find the bird video and donate to the cause, and how to do the OQRS thing to get those cards in the mail.
So QSLs are on clublog.org. The Baker2018.net is our main website. From there you can see pictures and links to video. If you Google Vimeo 9V1YC, there's a 2-minute little introductory video that James did. All our sponsors are on the website. All our equipment sponsors. In addition to Elecraft, antennas were from Stepper. The DX Engineering folks gave us coax and connectors and power supplies, anything we wanted. Tim Duffy just said, where do I ship it? We had antenna tuners from Rig Expert, thanks to them. All this stuff, Heil headsets. Bob Heil made sure each operator had his own Pro 7. And God, I hope I haven't forgotten anybody, but 5,800 pounds of gear. There's probably someone in there I forgot.
Okay, so you can check that out. And again, club log for the OQRS. You can request the QSL card if you want to get one of those print QSL cards. And we would, of course, appreciate some support to help finish off paying for this big trip. So, Don, thank you so much for coming back to tell us how it all went. And when you get the next one figured out, let us know. We'd love to have you back.
Oh, thank you. It's always fun, Neil. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. Thanks to my guest, Don Greenbaum, N1DG, and everybody out there in cyberspace for listening and calling in. And I invite you back next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Christian Kudnick, K0STH, is going to be back. And we're going to talk about the 100 watts in a wire Fallout, the 3rd edition of the Fallout. So make sure you're here. Call in and harass Christian a little bit and talk about Fallout, getting ready for just some changes in the weather. Hopefully, we're pretty warm here today. Heat index up in the triple digits, but I think it said a 30-degree cool down tomorrow. So maybe that cooler weather's around the corner. So make sure you check out the 100 watts and wire Fallout, and Christian will be here to talk about it and who knows what else. Next week right here at hamtalklive.com. And if you're interested in our upcoming guests, that's the place to go. Just click on the show schedule link at hamtalklive.com and you'll find that out. Also made some progress on the t-shirts for those of you kind of following along on the satellite themed limited edition t-shirts. I've got the order form almost ready to go online, and I think we've got a printer and everything worked out for that. So look for that soon. It'll be in the next week or two. We'll announce all the details and start taking orders for those. And if you like Ham Talk Live, please consider listing us in a review. Leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. That just helps others find us faster. So thanks for that. So for now, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.